Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bursts of ACGC's 2025 events. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to this one and on this particular topic, which has been a very popular one, as all of you joining us are evidence of.
When you start thinking about what's the governance for the use of this technology is going to look like, hallucination wasn't a problem you were dealing with in the past. It wasn't. It's an unknown problem that has not been accounted for.
I was personally very struck by the glaring omission in international surveys. Our in-house counsel in Africa seemed consistently underrepresented. Many of you will be aware that there are a myriad of international GC surveys, but the voices of in-house counsel in Africa within those research projects seemed notably absent despite the size and scale of the African in-house legal fraternity. And I remember personally writing to countless organizations who will remain nameless, asking for the African in-house counsel perspective to be included and reflected. And one thing I observed was that, people were sort of interested, maybe not so much, but, there wasn't really an acknowledgement that this was even an oversight. And so that really troubled me.
I remember when we first had conversations with the co-founders, and I remember a chat with Nankunda, who'll be speaking later. One of the areas of great concern was the mental health impact on legal professionals. I think we've observed the news in various platforms across the world. Actually, it's not peculiar to African VCs and legal departments and legal counsel. It's a global problem that advocates are increasingly, or lawyers or attorneys, whichever the case may be, are increasingly under great amount of stress. And as you'll see from the slide that has been projected very kindly by AfriWise, there is increased pressure, there's work-related anxiety, there's increased stress levels, there's increased workload, the departments are understaffed. I think that's a common refrain amongst legal counsel in Africa whenever we meet up.
So, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Nous sommes ravis de vous accueillir aujourd'hui. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Loren, and I am the co-founder of the African Corporate and Government Counsel Forum. Welcome to our Legal Crossroads and African Dialogue Between Legal Traditions webinar.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. Welcome to everybody. So my name is Godwin Amenyinu. I'm a member of ACGC Advisory Board. I'm in-house counsel with Intercon Security Systems. What would you say are the key differences in how lawyers are trained within civil law systems versus common law systems? Nafisa.
La formation juridique en France et dans les systèmes civils en général permettent d'exercer après soit un master en tant que juriste, mais pour devenir avocat, il y a 2 examens à passer, le CRFPA et ensuite le CAPA, le certificat d'aptitude à la profession d'avocat. Et la différence qu'il y a depuis plusieurs années, c'est qu'on encourage à avoir une ouverture d'esprit, à faire autre chose que le stage en cabinet d'avocat, parce qu'on reconnaît qu'aujourd'hui les avocats sont beaucoup plus que des notables qui disent le droit, mais aussi des personnes qui s'associent au business.
So, which lead me to ask my second question is, what do you think we could learn from each other? I'll start now with Ozzy.
Thank you very much for that question, Godwin. There's so much we can learn from each other because besides the main adversarial system and the common law system, even every legal concept, it's either they're similar or there's a different way of doing it, right? And one thing I've found in the course of working across multiple jurisdictions in Africa is not to assume that it is the same in each country. So when I have a question, even if it's even if it's commercial term like warranty, for instance, right? I will need to understand the difference in whether it's common law or civil law. And what I would take for granted if I'm selling in a common law jurisdiction, I have to double dip, to ask more questions in the civil code, because the concept of latent defect, for instance, is totally different between common law and civil law, right? That was another learning opportunity.
Hi everybody, my name is Lloydette Baimara and I am the Managing Partner of Parametric Global Consulting. We are a corporate investigations and compliance consulting firm based in London and serving clients globally. Now, I am so excited to be kicking off ACGC's Compliance Essentials Program for 2025. So, want to talk about this role. So I've just touched on what's the role and the responsibilities of the compliance officer. I think for so long, compliance has been seen, and we'll all have heard some of these tropes over time, being the department of no, they're the business blockers. Compliance is always going to say no when you ask them something. Let's just not bring them in because you know what the response will be. And I would absolutely reject that, because I think oftentimes the issue for many compliance officers is not that they want to say no. The issue is that they are brought into the discussion at too late a stage, which means they have to say, well, actually, we can't do X or we can't do Y. Whilst if they had been brought in at a much earlier stage, then there would have been the ability to co-create, so that as the organization moves, so for example, it's introducing a new business line, it's moving into a new jurisdiction, it's making some significant changes. If they bring compliance into those discussions at the early stages, then it becomes a conversation around how can we do this so that the organization can grow safely, so that the organization can grow sustainably, rather than at the very late stages where compliance has to say no.
Timmy, let me come to you and just talking about cultural identity as strategy. So, you're in a very unique position in that you've had the privilege of seeing this from a number of vantage points. You've served as a GC, a Nigerian DFI. You're now a partner in a leading international law firm. I'd love for you to just tell us a bit more about specifically how your Nigerian identity has helped shape the work that you do, leading on high stakes deals.
In the first place, I think some of the mandates, essentially I represent states and a number of state entities and national companies all across Africa. So in the first place, I think my Nigerianness has helped me to be able to secure the mandate in the first place. The time that I spent at the Infrastructure Bank in Abuja, which is a Nigerian development finance institutions with cooperation agreements with other development finance institutions all across the continent, such as the African Development Bank, Development Bank of Southern Africa, and all of that, has given me a wealth of relationships, right, that I've built all across the continent, which has helped me, which I've relied upon to be able to develop a successful practice.
You're leading teams that are working not just across different markets, but different cultures and different languages and different regulatory environments. So how do you intentionally use not just your culture, but also your linguistic fluency to effectively lead and to influence? How does that actually work?
So really, the truth is cultural and then, linguistic fluency
don't view it really as soft skills. They are really strategic tools, especially if you're working, across markets like the Anglophone and the Francophone market. So I've also come to believe every market has its own pulse. Every team has its own way of working and seeing the world. So you don't go in assuming that things should be in a particular way, right? So you take your time to understand how the team communicates, what motivates them, and then what their legal and then business priorities or realities are. And for me, that builds trust.
What does it mean to fully show up as Lemise in a global tech space?
I bring the context of, finding common ground, building community. But I will say that effective leadership in any position, in any role, in any company relies on the ability to persuade others. And you have to adapt your persuasive technique to your audience. And I think as an African lawyer, how I show up is, I think we are very flexible and we are very fluid in terms of how we think, how we problem solve. We're very creative and innovative. And that comes from working in an emerging market.
Bai, I'm going to come to you. I really want to hear from you. What are some of your practical tips or insights on working as an African lawyer, developing that credibility on deals, both international and African, but then avoiding being boxed as the Africa person?
So for me, leading with technical proficiency and experience is paramount. I don't lead with being an African lawyer. I lead with the fact that I have the knowledge and the expertise to support you. And I think that way, the Africa question sort of is secondary. I have a wealth of experience that I have gained as an African and also being dual qualified, having done law school in Nigeria. That is just fundamentally who I am and who's in me. And so when I'm working on a deal, first and foremost is your technical competence and your proficiency. And then the fact also that you are Nigerian or you are African, you understand the laws or you understand the issues that you face executing transactions in those jurisdictions, the regulations.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the ACGC webinar that is specifically for public sector teams.
Effectiveness. And in the public sector, we serve government, we serve public departments, we serve diverse corporations, ministries, you name it. As long as it's not the private sector, it is public sector, it's government, and it is there to serve the people. So it's quite keen, it's a very good idea that we must be as effective as possible. But somehow that effectiveness still eludes us. And when we say what do we mean by effectiveness, the different ways, different terminologies, effectiveness, efficiency, efficacy. And that's why I say, look, one person's apple of efficiency, somebody else's pear of efficacy.
Leadership is cause, everything else is effect. We know that John C. Maxwell says that everything rises and falls on leadership. And he also says that a leader is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and actually shows the way. So this is somebody providing direction. It's clear. And that's why the job of providing strategy or long-term objective of an organization is the role of leaders. Okay, so we expect our leaders to lead by first providing direction in terms of our strategic goals or objectives.
Once the IOSCO issues these guidelines, then it's up to the CMA, because it's the body that is responsible for oversight of the capital markets sector in Kenya. And CMA means the Capital Markets Authority Kenya. Then the CMA will then take these international best practices as guided by IOSCO, which we call them the IOSCO guidelines, and then now implement those under local law. So this is then how the CMA will either have the CMA Act, which is, we'll have an amendment of the CMA Act, or the CMA will develop the CMA regulations based on the specific area that they seek to govern.
place. So GRC stands for Governance, Risk and Compliance. Many of us, and I will also speak for myself, or really get a feel of GRC at a more operational level, in the sense that it has been cascaded down from the board, EXCO, and then it's now being implemented. But it really starts from the top. Governance speaks really to the role that the board plays, how the company is being run, and making sure it is being run properly. For this to be done, the board needs to be able to come up with systems, monitor the right aspects that the company needs to keep in touch with, to ensure that the company is meeting its purpose and its business aspects.
According to ISO standard 31000, which is the risk management standard, the definition of risk management is simply the effect of uncertainty on objectives. The three terms: effect of uncertainty on objectives. So there must be objectives first, and there must be uncertainty and the effect of those uncertainties. So every organization exists to achieve particular business objectives. So anything that is likely to affect or to hinder or to interfere with the achievement of that objective is risk. And every organization has to put in place mechanisms to proactively identify all those issues, all those occurrences, all those activities that are likely to interfere with the achievement of those objectives.
My name is Amo Kanzi. I am the Head of Diversity and Inclusion and a corporate finance lawyer at BNP Paribas, and I'm really pleased to be with you here today. So the question that we have to consider today is ESG a legal liability or a strategic opportunity?
And I think the important thing to understand when we look at ESG is that in the old days, everyone always sort of kind of separated it out. You had the environment, you had society, you had the economies, and they kind of crossed over a bit like a Venn diagram. But that's not really how it works. The reality is that the economies are embedded within society, which is embedded within the environment. That makes logical sense. There is no economic activity if there is no human society.
And I want to talk about the risk of poor governance of ESG. Because when ESG is managed reactively, what happens is that it exposes companies to lawsuits, cancelled contracts. It could even lead to reputational damage and stakeholder revolt. But when it is stewarded with legal foresight, ESG is a strategic asset.
How do you report on ethical matters or on unethical behavior? So whistleblowing policy is very important for every organization to have. Now, I said coming from the banking sector, in Nigeria here, the CBN ensures, because they are the regulators for the banks and other financial institutions, there's a report that you must render on whistleblowing to them. And when they come for examinations, they will also ask. So it is that important. And you can be penalized for not having it, or for having it and not training staff on it. You are expected to also train staff. It goes hand in hand with anti-money laundering policy, which we are also expected to have.
Good morning, welcome to ACGC's 7th annual conference. My name is Cynthia Loren.
I'm Nankunda, the other half. To the Zambians, thank you so much for your hospitality already, and for turning out and welcoming us to your beautiful country. I'm hoping the elephants make another appearance. What I'm going to do is just basically kickstart things and introduce our first panel.
Thank you all for joining us. We're excited to be here.
Today, I'm incredibly honored. I think we all should feel particularly honored and glad that we have Monica join us today.
Also really great to see old friends in the legal industry. Great that you could make it out of your busy offices to be here, and really great that this is happening. So thank you very much for that.
I'd like to introduce the next session. We're talking about in-house counsel as catalysts.
Have you had a good day? Yeah? Excellent. We are at the end of day one. Well done, everybody. Please give yourselves a round of applause.
Why this one?
Our speakers for today are Ernest Mueller, Director, Environmental, Social and Governance at Herbert Smith Freehill, South Africa. And then we have Deborah Mbalwa, who's also Director, Governance and Sustainability at Hialelo, Zambia.
Thanks very much, Annabelle. Thank you very much, everybody. It's great to be back at the ACGC conference.
But now we're looking at one more thing that is a treasure in Zambia, and that's copper. And I'd like to invite the moderator, Nakasamba Banda Chanda, Zokwani Chilembo, Mr. James Banda, and then lastly, Salombe Balashi.
Welcome to this panel discussion, essentially entitled, Why the World Wants Zambia's Copper.
This panel will be moderated by Sholagbade Sobechum.
Can I just invite my panel members to please come on stage?
Good afternoon. My name is Mwansa Mulumba Mutimushi.
Good afternoon. My name is Tawila Anamila.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nikki Wetanga.
This is actually another rallying call for everyone in this room to actually engage.
For our shopping and regulatory conflict for cross-border businesses.
I heard someone earlier mentioning the fact that when you interact with the regulator,
and the post office ends up suing some of these postmasters. A lot of them lost their businesses, some of them went to prison.
Standing as legal general counsel, regional head of legal, you're going to look at the problem in the eyes of legal.
And today we have the great pleasure of welcoming Ashlyn and Azar from Baker McKenzie.
My name is Ashlyn Perumal. I am a partner at Baker McKenzie South Africa. I head up our technology team there, but I'm joined by one of the luminaries in our industry, and we're fortunate to have him as well in our team, and that's Azar.
One of the fun parts of knowledge management is exploring to McKenzie the technology, looking at AI, and responsible for AI within Baker McKenzie locally in South Africa.
My name is Janet. I'm a partner at Coventry's, as you've been told. I'm an advocate, but also a data privacy practitioner.
The beauty about a session after lunch is that you can say anything that you want to say and get away with it.
Thank you, Janet, for doing a stellar job. And thank you, Shepo, for walking us through how the regulator is thinking.
One thing occurred to me here that at some point it may be good to find a platform that could probably help automate or semi-automate some of these things that we're doing.
Now, ACGC is Africa-wide, and it continues to grow. And I've mentioned the co-founders. They started something about 7 years ago, and it continues to be impactful in the way lawyers, form a community around our lovely continent of Africa.
ACGC does not only give us a platform to learn, to collaborate, but to make new friends, to make new connections, to learn new languages, to learn about other cultures, to visit fantastic new places.
We really just want to say a massive well done. Thank you. We've had an amazing 3 days. I really hope that you have had, amazing time. We're going to round up the conference with something social.
I do want to reserve my final thank you to the third member of our executive, which is Oladimeji Logan.
So we'd like to say thank you to all the hosts.
Hello, good evening. Welcome.
Thank you so much for this. This is the third year of giving awards, and we're so excited and pleased by all the participation by the membership in this process. And the awards are truly a reflection of what people think and feel about their counterparts and peers. No more talking.
Yeah.
Music, drinks,
food,
Enjoy
dance.
yourselves. Have a
Please
lovely
dance.
evening.
Please. We want to see you dancing. We have